Parents, what do fussy babies and ADHD kids have in common? One of my least favorite things that parents hear from pediatricians is this quote, "Don't worry, your baby will just grow out of it." Whether it's colic or any other early life struggle, this just is not true. They don't grow out of colic, they grow into other challenges. The endless crying, the back arching and tension, the sleepless nights that you are dealing with are not just phases that magically disappear. They're warning signs from your baby's nervous system that something deeper is happening. Another thing that we see every week in our office is that parents come in with their 7-year-old or their older kiddos struggling with sensory challenges, ADHD or anxiety. And when we dig into their case history, there it is. They were colicky babies or they dealt with other early life challenges. The same stress that caused colic at 3 months is now causing the meltdowns or the inability to focus as an older kid. The label has changed, but the root problem hasn't left. That's what this video is for. I want to explain why birth interventions cause almost all of colic cases, what the vagus nerve does, why babies are tense, they're arching their backs early on in life, and how it is connected, how colic can be traced to ADHD and how it really is the same thing when you understand that underlying neurology and how your body is functioning. But most importantly, parents, I don't want you to just understand where this is coming from. I want you to understand what to do to address the root cause. How can you actually help, right? Because knowledge isn't power. I like that phrase, but I think it's better put, knowledge is potential power. It's not until you do something with it. It's not until you have an action step that it actually changes your life. So that's what we want to leave you with. Thinking about this and preparing for it, it makes me think of one of our Thrive kiddos, a little boy named Bryson, a little baby. When he came in, he did have a little bit of extra birth stress, right? It took a while. That labor process was pretty prolonged, and that led to him having extra stress at the start of life. He was colicky, he was screaming and fussing all the time. He was dealing with reflux and on medications for that, and it had started early. His parents were frustrated, they were at a loss, and didn't really know where else to turn. I love what we got to see as he went through care. When we addressed that underlying neurological tension, he was a happier baby, he was calmer, and not even needing to have a scope done as was previously planned because some of his symptoms were so much better that the ENT was like, there's nothing we need to do at this point. What is so amazing about that is how it helped that family now in the immediate challenge of dealing with a struggling baby. But what's even more exciting is the story that he won't have in the future. It's the problems that we got to avoid because we addressed those challenges at the start of life. So let's understand it, right? Colic is most frequently referred to as a gut issue. We think of belly struggles or gas pains, and that is true to a certain extent. But what we got to understand is it goes deeper than that. Digestion is controlled by the nervous system. Your nervous system is the air traffic control center for every single function in your body. There's a nerve specifically called the vagus nerve, and it runs from your brainstem. It runs from the base of your skull by these first couple of cervical vertebrae down your neck, and it's controlling, it's innervating your esophagus, your stomach, your digestive processes. So even with the perfect diet, even with nothing but breast milk, and even with a great latch, sometimes those things aren't good when you got this birth trauma too, you're going to have a kid struggling if they can't digest and process that food properly. That's what we find when we are working with these babies and these kids. Almost every single time we see some sort of birth trauma in a child with colic. Now, what does that look like? Sometimes it's obvious, right? C-section, vacuum extraction, forceps delivery, major, severe name challenges. But other times it's more subtle where you might not expect it to be as impactful. Getting induced, even just hands-on, pulling, turning, twisting at that head and neck. Let's think about this little baby doll Sophia here, right? If you were cuddling a baby, you would never hold them like this, right? You're never gonna grab them by the head and neck, but that's what happens in the birth process. We pull from here, we lift out of the birth canal, we're turning and twisting or laterally bending. Parents don't realize a lot of times how much force is involved in that process and how much impact it has on that kid. That's not to say that our birth providers are terrible people that are hurting babies. They just don't realize, they're not trained to know that that has consequences because they're off to the next birth. They're not following that kid throughout the development, throughout the lifespan, realizing that there is a consequence. But because of that, because this area is the most susceptible during the birth process, because it's where usually hands or instruments are pulling, this is the most likely to be damaged. It's that upper neck and then this upper back area because that's the next step up developmentally and just physically, right? Those areas are the most common injured at birth, and that's why we see colicky babies so stiff, so tense, and so rigid, because it's almost like they're trying to unlock that. They're trying to work that out. Their nervous system is so jammed up, they're so stuck that they're uncomfortable, and that those areas, right? You see that fuse box poster behind me. If you could zoom in and read it, you'd see this upper neck area, the vagus nerve, the calming part of our nervous system, is controlling gut health. It's controlling our immune system. It's controlling sleep and reflux and the belly pains and the digestive centers that your kid is struggling with. So we've got to understand that that is so frequently a part of the colic journey. The other piece of it, sometimes it happens even earlier, it's just pregnancy stress, right? The maternal experience for mom, that leaves a mark because the umbilical cord is the power supply to that baby. The stress hormones that mom may be dealing with and that lack of support that is all too frequently in pregnancy, that can have an impact on baby too, right? When they are going through pregnancy in more of a stressful survival mode state, that really is priming the pump and is setting our nervous system up for this journey. So we understand where it's coming from. What is that journey that we see? So frequently we refer to this perfect storm pathway, this whole confluence of different factors and influences that leads to then a baby being colicky from maybe that 0 to 6 month range, oftentimes constipation, reflux, maybe torticollis or plagiocephaly, head rotation problems or a flat head. Those kind of get lumped together because they're often from the same cause. We have that colic start to life. Oftentimes will turn into maybe chronic ear infections from that 6 to 18 month-ish window. And then we have the kid that grows out of that, right? Because these problems just magically disappear. Now all of a sudden you're showing up with motor and speech delays from 1.5 to maybe 3, right? Early on, you're not really sure if your kid's different or if it's just they're a little bit behind. You wait and see some more. You hope they grow out of it. And now you're in therapies, and now you're in OT, and now you're in speech, trying to get to the bottom of those things when you're really behind the 8 ball. That keeps going. 3 to 5, maybe it's more of the sensory challenges, emotional regulation. And then we get 5 to 10 to school age, anxiety, ADHD. Sometimes the anxiety goes all the way over into more of a depressed shutdown state too. And it seems like completely disjointed, disconnected struggles, but parents, it is the same journey. It is the same underlying neurological dysregulation and nervous system stuck in fight or flight that shows up differently throughout the lifespan in different age ranges. So we've got to get to the why, right? The colic doesn't just go away, it transforms into other stuff. And this is only worsened when we get on antibiotics for the ear infections or we're on steroids for immune challenges. It just ramps up and heightens that neurostress even more. It wrecks our gut even more, and we get deeper and deeper into these struggles. The therapies, they're not bad necessarily, right? OT and speech and PT, we're a huge fan of using those therapies, but a lot of times they're missing the why. A lot of times, if you're addressing that without addressing the neurology behind the scenes, it's like you're trying to push a car with the parking brake stuck on, right? Maybe you're going to make some progress, but it's going to be an uphill struggle and you're never going to get to the actual deeper challenges behind. But let's reverse that. You unlock the neurological ability to heal, then those therapies can really click and you can start to make major progress and see leaps and bounds from the kids when they start to get on track with that. So parents, what is the takeaway? What do you need to do? Don't just trace the symptoms. Don't just look for another diagnosis. Your kid does not need another label. They don't need another diagnosis or another medication. You need to get to the why. You need to get to that deeper struggle and get their nervous system out of stress into a balanced state. The earlier we can do that, the faster they can heal and the faster they can get back on track. That's what Thrive is here for. We are pediatric focused, neurologically focused practice. Our scans, the neurological assessment that we do to start care, lets us see how is their body functioning. What is their nervous system doing? How are we adapting to stress? Are we stuck in fight or flight, or are we doing and handling life as we should? So that's our starting point. We dig into the case history, we do those scans, we do that neurological test to see where they're at, to make sure that we can help them reach their full potential and be at their best. Please reach out if you think we can help. If you have any questions, if you want to dig into that more, you can get to the link in our bio here and learn more that way. But our team is always here, happy to chat, happy to help. And I can't wait to meet you soon, and can't wait to get your kids scanned and help your family thrive.